What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pitch Please podcast. Today I'm talking to Allan and Elizabeth from Meerby. They have the most intelligent help button for customers to use at retail stores across North America. Allan, Elizabeth, excited to learn more about what that means and how I'm going to get better help when I go to my nearest retailer. Welcome to the show. Why don't you guys give us an introduction about each of yourselves and maybe a little bit of background on what got you here?
I'm up. All right. I'm so excited to be here, Mike, and talk about Nearby. I think first off, Alan and I are brother and sister. I'm the younger. We grew up in retail. It's a family business that we grew up in. We kind of lived and breathed the retail environment, learning how to be best in class from our parents. They run a Canadian Tire store and have for our dad's about to celebrate 40 years running a Canadian Tire. Nothing more Canadian than that. So for us, it's just been since we talk about, when did you first start working? And Alan will say at like 2 years old. Since I'm the baby, I got to start a little later. But in doing so, I think we just grew up understanding that to be top in class in retail was about many different things. It's about having the right operations, it's about having the right people, and it's about really good customer service. And Meerby is something that we created to solve our own business problem. And that's why we're super excited to be here and talk about it today.
Um, yeah, Mike, obviously, Alan, super excited to be here. I'm glad Liz got it in early that she's the youngest because she gets really upset when anyone makes an assumption otherwise. Um, yeah, I think kind of as Elizabeth alluded to, for the last 10, 15 years, we've been really trying to lead the charge at the Canadian family business Canadian Tire in Ottawa. And uh, pre-COVID, we were really interested in trying to figure out how we could improve customer experience. In retail because our store is now 90,000 square feet. And even if use this stat all the time, if there's 8 people down on the floor right now walking around doing nothing but exclusively trying to find and help customers. That staff member's covering 3 basketball courts worth of square footage, and the aisles are 12 feet tall. So it was really frustrating for us as business owners that really wanted to be exceptional at this, that we go down to the floor ourselves and ask customers if we could help them. Our staff would be asking customers if they could help them, and then you'd go to your CSI website, and there's never anyone available to help. And a lot of times when there's 40 or 50 customers in the store and 8 or 9 staff, they're going in different directions, and it just didn't happen to link up. And we just started playing around with a bunch of different ways to connect staff and customers together, whether it was QR codes, text messaging, and we ended up back at a button, which is kind of funny because we felt like we went backwards, but they're the smartest button that we think anyone's ever made. And it's really made a difference in um, the customer experience, but also the staff experience. So um, retail staff in 2024, it's hard to get them, right? Yeah, it's harder to keep them, especially the good ones. So we talk a lot about we can't forget what it's like to be alone at the returns counter on a busy Saturday after Christmas, and that
Yeah.
anxiety of will help come. Sometimes you get yelled at, and we've really focused on trying to do the best job at supporting the staff, and the staff support the customers, right? We had 650,000 paying customers last year, and we might have helped a couple hundred each, but nothing in comparison to the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
It's probably too long than you wanted, but I also what
No,
big
it's
yeah.
fine. It sounds like you both have transitioned this journey from being the call button yourselves as children running around a
Yep.
Canadian Tire store trying to help as many customers as you could, like whack-a-mole, to having to solve this problem yourselves. Um, Now, that kind of story of where this started, your father owned a Canadian Tire, you worked within the Canadian Tire. Did that sort of start the journey into entrepreneurship? Obviously, your father being an entrepreneur, was that the immediate destiny for you? And I know sometimes that either influences or people try to break away from. What was your story and what did that look like? Were you just sick of being a call bell at a certain point? And what did that?
It's funny.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
I'll go first this
Yeah.
time, I guess. So, as the older child, we would like I worked at Cane Tower through high school. It was a good part-time job. I sharpened a lot of skates. I helped a lot of customers, and I'll go back to that later in the chat. Then I went away to university. It's funny. Canadian Tire's provided a great life for our family. We completely understand how privileged we are in the opportunities it's given us. And we'd come home at first day of like summer break from university and honestly try and work every single day almost until probably 2 weeks before university started. We'd go on vacation, but then you'd start the pattern over again. But then when we got to the end of school, both of us in some different capacity decided that maybe Canadian Tire wasn't the right fit for us. But over time, and we both have master's degrees. Mine's in international relations. Elizabeth actually has a master's in neuroscience. So not only is she younger, she's also smarter. That'll become clear over the next half an hour, I imagine. We weren't sure it was the right fit. And then I think what's so unique about Canadian Tire is we are so fortunate, and we our parents remind us of this often, that 650,000 people came here last year, but it isn't Dave Malcolmson's hardware store or Allan and Elizabeth's sports store. It's Canadian Tire, so it's an iconic national brand, and we're really lucky that we get to work within it. And they also provide us a ton of flexibility. So our friends that are doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, a lot of times are like, why do you do this? And I was like, well, yesterday I was an accountant because I was doing a business plan for a $50 million Canadian Tire. And today I'm an engineer because I'm in the warehouse working out racking and trying to make that better. And tomorrow I might be in small claims court because somebody fell in the parking lot and I'm going to be defending myself. So we get to do so many different things. And the neat thing about it is we've been entrepreneurs almost since the day that we started having some leadership roles here, is that culture of excellence that our parents instilled, we wanted to maintain it. But that meant we had to continue to push the envelope. And a lot of times we were doing things internal to Canadian Tire to be better. And this is the first time that we really stepped outside now of Canadian Tire. But it was just like, wake up every day. It's a slogan we use with our staff. Better tomorrow. And just like every day, better tomorrow. And as long as you accomplish that, you can create a lot of magic. So did I leave? Did I not say anything?
What is left to be said? I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, for sure, I think watching our parents go through that, and obviously, for sure, Dad would say it's about the triangle, and that led to so much of his success. But I think also it's like knowing that in entrepreneurship that we've observed, it's like you're never off, right? You're always on. We understand that, at 4:30, we're not clocking out and going home. And I understand lots of people's lives are like that. But it's always in our minds. And I think we grew up that, dinner time conversation, there wasn't ever a meal that, we didn't talk about something that had happened in our day's work. So I think for us moving into this, it's like we kind of understand the demands of that, but also the perks of the fact that you are you can be your own boss, you can lead, you can innovate. I think that part is exciting. We witnessed that, but then we also understand that, there's pros and cons to it. And we have our eyes wide open, I think, when it comes to that specific part of it.
So you tried to escape the entrepreneur thing, went away to school, thought maybe you wouldn't come back as a call button. You came back not as a call button, but now you had to be a lawyer and an engineer instead.
All the things,
which is pretty cool. I guess, you're running some successful Canadian Tire stores. You naturally may have found this problem, but like, just because you have a problem, sometimes you seek out a solution. Doesn't mean you want to solve it. Doesn't mean you want to start a second business that you have to deal with. What was like the impetus of like what created Meerby and what the tipping point was where you decided you need to solve it?
For sure. Go.
I'll take the first part. You take the second part. So it fully started as just a homegrown internal solution. And Liz would say she remembers the day we were down on the floor being like, what if we could just put a button at the end of every aisle? And you created this repetitive expectation for the customer that no matter where they are in the store, if they go to the same spot, help will come. And that was like early 2020. And we just kind of played around with a few different solutions. I think we've used 22 different types of hardware to get to one that's as robust and secure as it is today. But it was just always just about us. We just wanted to do better by our customers in Ottawa and also support our staff better. We posted really strong sales results that very first year that we really got the MVP. Not that MVP is sometimes a bad word, and in tech, but MVP for us.
Yeah, we
because
didn't know what that was.
yeah, at that point we didn't know what it was for sure. We convinced a peer store in August of 2021 to turn it on, and again, it was the same experience.
Okay.
Our sales went up, our customer satisfaction scores went up almost through the roof, like 7-10%, and our staff engagement also increased. We kind
Wow.
of told some friends about it. They're like, we want it too. We gave it to them. And then again, we were just like focused on innovating the product for our own business needs
Okay.
and scaling to a small point. And then last summer, your turn.
Oh, geez. I think the only thing I'd like to add to that is that really the initial thing was we know we have really good staff and we were feeling frustrated. And I think Allan alluded to this earlier on, is that we knew we were spending money on having just a frontline sales team. We knew that existed. And then we would read our customer feedback that always humbles you, that we get every Monday about how they feel. And they would say, there's no one around to help me. And we'd be like, we know there are, and they're very good and capable people.
Yeah.
So I think it was like, we can't go on at this like thing of investing in this CSR workforce and not seeing that it's actually having an impact on our customers. So it's frustrating for our staff. And then obviously, you don't want to have a frustrated customer base. So it really was, what if we can create this meaningful, repeatable experience? And then once we could connect the staff and the customer, then we started layering in, hey, now there's, decades of experience of working in a retail environment. There's all kinds of other challenges that we experience.
Yeah.
So how can we continue to feature ad and how to make it even better and even smarter? And what we're so lucky is that we have a test box. I look out my window and that's my test box. I'm here on Saturday afternoon and I go, this could be better. And we talk on Monday about how we can feature ad and improve. So it's so much more than just push a button and someone comes. It's that the closest, most well-trained, available person comes and they have the skills required. So like, we all experience frustrations in a shopping environment where, you finally track someone down and you're like, I need into this showcase, or I need to mix paint. And the person goes, well, I don't have the keys, or I don't know how to mix paint.
Let me go find you someone.
Exactly. And you're like, I finally found you and now you're gone. So I think for us, it's like, we know those pain points. And then how do we make it so that help is nearby, but it's not just any help. It's trained, effective, friendly help. And for us as operators, and in terms of improving the staff experience, is that there are people that work for us that love helping customers. They feel really confident doing it. That's what they like about their job. We also have people who work here that's not what they like doing. They like putting product on shelf. They like to merchandise. And so this also allowed us to insulate the people that customer first focus is not what they love to do. They'll do it, of course, if their peers need help. But it also allowed us to really create this like bubble of people that we can effectively deploy so that our friendliest and like most customer centric staff help most of our customers, which is why the customer satisfaction continues to go up. And I think also our staff satisfaction has gone up because we also are allowing people to do what they like to do most of the time.
All right,
There's a couple pieces. There's a couple pieces in there. I just want to the coolest thing. I don't even know if you guys realized it, but because you were customer zero, most startups have this like, I have an idea, I've had a problem, now I need someone to pilot this with and iterate. You got to be on both sides of that, which is really cool. What was that like? Do you think that made it easier? Do you think it created some bias because you were solving it for yourself?
For sure.
But how did you validate that, maybe it's just your store that had that problem? Probably not, but you know what I mean?
I think that's fair. I think one thing that I would say is probably a positive, it also may be a negative, is that because it was us, we were like, well, we can add that. Well, we can add that. And so now I think we kind of, as we're like, oh, hey, we really think we have something, we're going to market with it. It's like, it's so robust in all of the features and the idea of it. Exactly. We're definitely overbuilt. Yeah. And I think we have to remind each other now all the time is like, we can have a roadmap to do more. And I think that's the thing, because we live and breathe it every day. I'm always have the next thing we could do to make it just that much better. But for sure, I think as in the tech space, probably it's like, overbuilt. Those features could have come later. But I mean, I don't think that's a terrible thing to be, but that's definitely part of it. And I think also because I think we also had a history of being innovative and relying on technology before this big of a creation, is that our staff are really great at giving us feedback. They'll tell us if they don't like it. And I think, we haven't talked about this yet, but change management in our pilot stores has not been a big issue. And I think it's because we understand how to sell it to the team and how to share the features with the staff so that they're like, oh yeah, this is going to make my life better. And the features that weren't, we fixed them and improved them because we heard it. Again, we were hearing it every day if it wasn't doing the things. A very real-time feedback loop. Yeah.
Yeah. We run in different, we've been running the store for 15, 20 years in some capacity. We have what we call like wellness committees for like part-time, full-time management. So like often we're sitting with core staff just having conversations, and there are many features and even many button locations from a UI UX perspective that like was just us sitting in this boardroom that we're recording the podcast in right now with staff being like, where should this button go, or what should this do? And then the whiteboard's on the screen, and we're doodle away and then send it off to the tech guys. And it didn't end up in Figma very often, but it often ended up in the whiteboard. But it came from somewhere very, very natural for us. I think the other part from a change management that I think is really unique is we have almost 200 staff at Canadian Tire. So every time we've gone to do an installation, we've done 10 now, we bring some of our best staff from Canadian Tire that are using the product. So if we're at a Canadian Tire doing an installation, they can jump on cash and help clear the line and have the conversation in the language that the people that work there also have, and we understand
what is the ultimate customer success team. The users and advocates.
They're like, I'm there. Let me tell you all these other tips.
Yeah, I got some hot tips for you. And there's also a little bit of internal competition, I think, at Canadian Tire in Canada now about like who gets to go for the next installation and what that looks like. So it's cool. Really neat team building exercise. And the other one about overbuilt, which I think is super important, that is we have been 100% up since September 28th of 23. We've not missed a day yet. But again, that's with our partner or pilot stores. Canada misses days all the time. But there's a whole extra level in the dev box there of we can load test it here as one of the larger stores in the chain. So if once it passes this environment, we know it's really good when it gets to the next one. And we're trying hard because not everyone that has the tool I would call now as a friend. They're peers for sure. But we know that they've trusted us as a startup to do something pretty unique. And some of it's fundamentally changing how they run their business. So it's got to work because there's a customer and not all the time, but there's a customer on the end of that button, or there's a staff member in help at the end of the help request. And either way, we got to go, and we got to figure out how to get there as quickly as possible.
So I have to address it because I know someone that's listening right now is like 10 seconds from tuning out. They're going to be like, okay, a call button. Like,
so what?
I've seen that in Home Depot. I've seen that in my nearest store. Like, I get it. You press the button, someone shows up. Let's just tackle this head on. What is actually different about Meerby? Where are these buttons located? How does this work?
Me first?
Sure.
Okay. So traditional call boxes in your Home Depot environment, Canadian Tire or otherwise, you push a button and it hits either the two-way radios that's creating noise pollution in the staff's ear, or it hits the intercom.
Okay.
There's no feedback loop on those buttons. So as an operator, and we used to have them, it was really what we were trying to replace was you'd pay $900 for a piece of hardware that makes noise, has no tracking mechanism. You have no idea how long it took for us to arrive at the customer, if the customer was missing when you got there, or did you do a good job of satisfying their needs when you arrived?
So even just as a real example, when I press that button, for people that have never been on the other side, what actually happens? Does it tell you someone needs help? Does it tell you the aisle? Like, what information do you get?
So saying with the previous example, or what's available in the market, it's personnel to the paint desk to mix paint.
Okay. Very broad.
Yeah, very broad. Or personnel to the socket lockup, and ideally they show up with the keys to actually complete the task. What we tried to do was go, all right, there's 100 and I don't know, 75 retail employees right now at Canadian Tire. It fluctuates based on season. 40 of them are at work. 7 of them are in hardware, and 3 of them know how to mix paint. So
Okay.
our native application now sends a push notification to the 3 people in hardware right now that know how to mix paint, assuming that they're not already on a call, because we also understand whether or not you're online, offline, on break, off break, or
Okay.
otherwise engaged if you've told the app you're doing something. If none of them respond in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or a minute, depending upon how the operator sets it up, it will then go, okay, shit, no one in hardware can come and mix the paint. Is there anywhere in the adjacent departments, maybe housewares and sports, that know how to mix paint? Send them. And if there isn't anyone, then we'll send the manager that generally knows how to mix paint. But that whole action has happened in less than a minute 30, ideally. And then the person that shows up to help you as the customer is actually quite good at what they're doing because we're following that rubric. And it works for a bunch of different applications now. So in simplest form, we talk about like, show up with the keys,
Yeah.
show up if you go to the hockey desk, make sure you know how to sharpen the skates. But we
Yep.
use it now for more simple operational things like backup to cash. So you have a long cash line. Every cashier in our stores have a button. They push the button for help. The
So you don't have
application,
to hear back up to cash a million times
Yeah.
over the
yes,
Yeah.
PA while
yeah,
you're waiting in line, realizing you're that reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
So many great things to unpack there. Is one, the cashier knows when she pushes the button, there's a time clock that started somewhere. She or he knows that every single person at work right now that knows how to run a register has been notified.
Yep.
And the management team, whether they go and actually get it on cash themselves or not, they can see it happening in our real-time dashboard. So help is going to come. And if not, at least there's ability for follow-up and repercussions, and is the strongest sense of the word of like, guys, you got to go because your coworker needs you because the cashiers generally get the brunt of the lineup, but it's often not their fault. And then retroactively, at the end of the shift, that person who went to help on cash can say to their manager, Elizabeth, I went to the backup to cash call 7 times today because I'm a great employee. I spent 3.5 hours on cash because
Can you
someone
just
called
bring
this.
another cashier in next
Yeah.
time?
Come on.
And,
Yeah.
and like maybe someone, and again in our modern reality, Mike, that's a great thing. Is like 2 people called in sick, one of them's kind of new, and yeah, that the person who's working in our promo department spent half her shift on promo. On instead of working on promo, she did it on cash. She can now go to her manager in her own dashboard, which she has, and say, look what a great Canadian Tire employee I was today because I did this great thing for our customers. But I was probably a crappy promo employee today because I spent a lot of time on cash. So again, when we talk about the staff satisfaction piece, is it's giving especially our great staff, or what I would describe as our helpful staff,
Yeah.
a real insight in what they're doing to contribute to the business that doesn't always show up on the sales card, which is hard, or the I put away all these carts of stock. Um, because those are things we can quantify, but we didn't have the ability previously to quantify. You just went to be helpful, and like, don't we want to surround ourselves in a business like this with
Yep.
people that are genuinely interested in being helpful? So our button's different. We have a merge, so within the application as well.
And it's a physical button, by the way, like in the store,
Yeah,
multiple places throughout the store.
yeah. Our biggest location for buttons right now is 275 buttons.
Wow.
So what we talked about was traditionally in Canadian Tire or Home Depot, they would put buttons that are sometimes $1,000 unit in like very core places like paint, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't put them in every aisle. So you walk in the front door of your local Canadian Tire, Home Depot, Walmart, and someone says, "Can I help you?" And you're like, "Where are the rubber boots?" Well, they're in aisle 39 on the left.
Yeah.
They provide you surface level help, but they didn't really help you. Then you get to the rubber boots and you're like, I want a size 10 and the shelf's empty. And you're like, now I need to find someone here. And you may actually wander to the hockey counter
To find one of
to
those.
push to find one of those buttons. Well, we go,
Okay.
let's put a $30 button plus some other stuff in every aisle in the store, in any place that you might need help, and send someone that's going to come around the corner that's moderately to highly engaged in selling you rubber boots or being able to solve the problem. We also have within the application, so we have like a peer-to-peer support network. So you can call for help through the application by skill, by department, by zone. So I might, and this is a great example from my life. When I used to work in sports, I knew every team sport, hockey, weight, whatever, but I don't hunt or fish. But
Okay.
hunting and fishing is also in the sports department. So I'd be alone in that department and have to as a 15-year-old be like, who works in hardware tonight that could answer the fishing question?
Yeah.
And then if someone asked me a fishing question, we would legitimately switch. But now the algorithm within the application really would go, the sports kid would be like, I need fishing help. And the system would be like, okay, show me everyone who in their profile who's at work right now has fishing as an expert maybe flagged in their profile, in their skills profile. One of the other cool ones, and Liz likes laughing at me about this, is we've also loaded languages in. So in
Oh, wow.
Canada in 2024, there are lots of people that walk in the front door of your local Canadian Tire that don't speak English, French, or otherwise. So like we literally now have this database of languages because there's 175 active employees right now. I don't know what every language they speak, and neither do our managers, but the app does.
Yeah,
So
you're
like
not gonna have that on the top of your
Yeah.
head
yeah,
every
Yeah.
time.
and even we did completed a transaction in Urdu a few weeks ago, which was like a pretty unique one, like a dialect from Pakistan or language from Pakistan. But like I didn't even know. And the other part is then like if you're like, oh, that guy speaks this language, and then you're like, is he here today? Is he on lunch right now? What? But the app
There's all
knows.
those things.
Yeah.
So it's really focusing on the most effective deployment of the resource and understanding who's there at any given time. The last one in terms of like cool shit that we worked in, we have some emergency protocols that work in. So whether you're first aid, fire, Code Adam is the
Yeah.
lost child protocol.
Yeah.
We don't have that many medical emergencies at Canadian Tire, and we have an SOP and we have first aid training. But like we had an older lady, go down in the cash lane in December, and we triggered the health emergency button through the application, and it then basically anything that the SOP says we should do, it sends push notifications to the
You
people
don't
that
have to like in the moment of panic rely on the staff
Yes,
remembering
exactly.
all of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the app says, show me everyone with first aid. And then all of those people then anyone who has first aid gets a notification being like, go get the AED, pull the stretcher, who's calling 911, who's making first contact with if they're with someone. And you have that like moment. Because those are the things that, again, like, solving our own business problem.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have that happen once or twice, or you lose a kid who's 3 years old in a 90,000 square
And even
foot.
they're missing for 45 seconds. It's a very terrifying 45
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah. And now when we trigger Code Adam in the program, every employee in the store gets a notification. And like, it's one of the proudest moments I have as a business operator is watching these 70-year-old men in hardware who like selling tools and these 16-year-old kids that have never had a job before take it seriously
Yep.
because the app's telling them how
It's a coordinated response.
coordinated response. So
That's
Man,
super cool.
I covered a lot
So
of
the
ground
other
there.
thing I'm hearing though is like there's two pieces. One is like your ability to sprawl buttons is way higher than anything out there. Like you can
Yes.
put a
Yeah.
button on
Yeah.
anything. You can be super buttoned up, if you will,
Yeah.
I
across
like it.
every corner of the store. But then there's
Sounds like a
also,
LinkedIn post later. But
You like that, right? The other piece that I'm hearing is that beyond the buttons, so the customer is customer one, but customer two is all of your own staff coordination. Like it sounds like everything from emergencies to internal backups that don't necessarily they affect the customer, but they don't need to be called by a customer to I don't know, I imagine you can do this if it's not already there, like clean up in aisle 5 without yelling clean up in aisle 5 some kid
Sure.
peed themselves. Like what kind of cleanup is this?
Yep.
You're able to like discreetly. It's like, you know what this is almost reminding me of? I don't know if anyone watched that Netflix series where they did how the Baha Mar in Bahamas does operations.
No, haven't
And
watched it.
basically, you should watch it. Someone should watch it. It's like the secret world of mega resorts or something.
Okay.
And it's like all the back tunnels and communication systems where the customer experience is paramount. And yeah, there's moments the customers trigger it, but there's all this stuff that needs to go right in the background that aren't even customer triggered things that you just don't need to like expose the dirty laundry
Exactly. Yeah.
to the customers. Like that's just for you to sort out. And the more you can sort that out behind the scenes, the better the customer experience, even when they're not looking to push a call button. And your solution's allowing you to tackle both the front of house, and I don't know if this is even the right term, but like technically
Yeah.
the back of house
Yep.
stuff as well.
I think when we first started, we thought, oh, we're creating call boxes or intelligent help buttons, but now we're calling it kind of intelligent roster deployment, because it's like all of those things that you said. You know, we have a button that we're low on carts. We have a button for, that there's like a health and safety issue, which could be, that there's water on the floor, etc. So yeah, and you're right, it's all happening in one spot, and I think the other part of this, we talked a lot about the customer experience and how we're improving that, the staff experience, but then also being a retail manager is a really dynamic and tough position to be in. And I think the nice thing as when you're running the store, it could be a $300,000 Saturday. You're responsible for this roster of people, and now it's all in one effective dashboard. So I can look at my in progress screen and I can see that, Mike is helping someone at the paint counter and he's been there for 5 minutes. Allan's out getting shopping carts. I now have backup to cash, and it's going to automatically tell me, it's going to automatically send somewhere where my, 8 years ago, I would have had to be like, okay, shoot, Mike's over there. I need to get who else is here that can run a cash register. And then maybe I need to pull Allan off carts to go do this. And so Meerby is just making that happen smoothly in the background. We talk about how we've harnessed kind of your best planner, your best day of person. Cause like, we say we have fire prevention officers and firefighters at our store. There's people that are really good at like making the plan, but then there's the people you really want here when it's happening. And the idea is that you've loaded all of that good information into Meerby, and then it's just making the next best decision with who's here. So I think what you talked about, it's like, it's don't let the customer hear all that over the PA system. You hear these really loud environments that are like, person here, clean up here, da-da-da here. It's like, why should our customers be burdened with all that
How many
noise?
times a day do you need to hear that? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, it's so quiet here. And I think, again, the ability to reward your staff for doing a great job, and then also the ability as, a business owner or a manager to be able to follow up on your staff. Because the other nice thing is there is that we're trying to gamify it, but also that scorecard idea that I can be like, hey, Mike, Allan, you guys both worked last night. Mike, you answered 8 calls. Allan, you only answered 2. Like, talk to me about what happened. And then our goal for the app as it continues to evolve is, let's figure out why Allan's not getting those calls. Like, is that it? Were they all in hunting and fishing? So Mike had to go, understanding our staff behavior, and then being able to, again, make it even more intelligent and make the staff experience even better.
It's interesting because what I'm hearing is it started obviously as the call system, then it allows you to do back of house operations. But what it's also doing is allowing you to get a set of data about your store operations and employees that otherwise is like just left to like qualitative stuff. I work at Microsoft in tech. We've got data and tracking, and like there's so many things. But in a retail environment, that doesn't necessarily, because of how people are working every day, doesn't let you have that level of visibility across, never mind one store, there's people that own multiple Canadian Tire stores. There's Canadian Tire head office that has, I don't know the number, I imagine it's over hundreds, but hundreds of stores. And like, how do you get a pulse on that?
What's really
real
happening?
time with accurate information that's not just like qualitative, like, hey, what are the key insights, team? Like, no, now
real data
behind that to make real effective decisions for employees, customers, staffing. Now, like, the retail planners must want to get their hands on this too, I imagine, because like flow of a store, all of these are critical pieces.
So there's so many things you just said. Like now my brain's spinning.
Whoops, did I just build out more roadmap?
No. I think a lot of that we've got, as terrible as that is. Okay, number one, we have over 1 million data points of in-store customer data that we've collected in the last like 9 months between ourselves and the pilot stores. One of the ironic things is that old call box button that we talked about at your Canadian Tire Home Depot, ours used to escalate at 5 minutes. So you push the button, it would say, and at 5 minutes, it would then go every minute until someone got there. What we've established in our 1 million data points in 4 years now of of execution of this program is that at minute 42, we start to experience customer leakage from the button.
Oh
Because
wow.
so the staff claim the button that they're going to go, and so then none of the other staff claim it. And then once they claim it, they actually go from claim to arrive because we want to track walk time. Because part of the algorithm needs to understand that we have to optimize is there's Canadian Tires now that are 130,000 square feet and 2 floors. So if you claim it and you're the opposite corner, it might take you 2 minutes to get there. So you're not the ideal candidate. So we don't have geo mapping, but
Yeah.
location mapping in terms of departments is really important. The crazy thing now is it used to be 5 minutes until we even did anything about it. Now we know at a minute 42 we start to see slippage, but we're reporting to our pilot stores every week how many customers their staff flagged as missing when they got there to help, which is something so painful as an operator that like a customer came in, they asked us for help, and we couldn't be bothered.
We didn't get there fast enough to help
to get
them.
there
When
fast
you're
enough.
learning
We
their
gave up.
attention span, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
For sure.
you know, in YouTube, it's like, what's the drop off rate, and the algorithm optimizes for people that pay attention past that. Yours is the same. You're optimizing on like, listen, you can get the expert there in 3 minutes, or someone that's the next best expert there in 1 minute, and the average customer dips at 1 minute 40 seconds. You optimize on someone who can get there in a minute
sure.
and 40 seconds or less,
Yeah.
even if they're the second best, because
They
no
gotta
human
go.
can figure that out at that speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had 135 button pushes yesterday in our store, and we logged just about 400 interactions through the app because the staff can also tell the app where they're helping, and we got there in a minute 9 on average. We define a failure at a minute 45, and I think of the 132, there were 7 failures and 4 customer missing. So the other part is that once you get to that failure moment, there's a cliff, which is why sometimes you might see Liz and I are literally on our phones running around being like, we got to get
Oh
to
no,
this.
you turned yourselves back into call buttons.
Yeah, we're back there again. But
the final whatever. Of
yeah, but I can assure you, when the staff see us going, they know how much it means to us, and then it just reinforces that behavior of like, we're gonna go. I think the last part on this kind of thread right now is, so whatever we get in front of retail managers, we can be incredibly compelling. One is because we speak the language, and two, when we start walking them through what our dashboard looks like and understanding the difference between meaningful and non-meaningful customer engagements and sales targets, they go like, my life's hard and I want that. Right. So that's really as we understand scale and going to market now, is I think if I could talk to a Best Buy, there wouldn't be a Best Buy manager in the country that cared about his operation and his customer experience. I don't know anyone at Best Buy, just like that we couldn't get them into the room and they'd be like, this is going to make our life better. Recently I was at a local computer store, maybe or not named Best Buy, and I rang a doorbell for help at this. They built this beautiful facility, and I was at their e-commerce pickup area, and I rang like a Honeywell doorbell that I heard ringing in the warehouse, and I was like, oh.
And then you slip them your card.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's a better way for this, and frustrating enough, and I don't want to be crappy. They didn't come, so then I walked to the front and said, "Could someone come?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll walk you someone," and I walked to the back. And he didn't come. So then I walked to the front again and he's like, I'll just help you. I don't know where he is. And I was like, oh, just like, this is that thing that as the market for our customers continues to be more and more competitive, and it's sexy right now to talk about e-commerce capacity and SLE time for order on your couch and pick up in store. But a lot of business still happens in the store. And we talk about this a lot from a Canadian Tire perspective, is whether you're in the car going somewhere or on your couch, what can we do as operators to make Canadian Tire your brand of choice? And a lot of that is that smiling face that helps you at the register or on the retail floor. And like, let's get the best person there. The other thing that we have not talked about at all, Mike, and this might be a curveball for you, is that we also are doing some facility work, and we're piloting in some Tim Hortons and Wendy's locations where we're working exclusively kind of in their, originally it was just kitchens and bathrooms. So like push button for service. So if the bathroom needs maintenance, you go in, and we're trying to remove the checklist on the back of the door in your local Swiss chalet.
Yeah.
Where they're all like so similar that you're like, did these all happen on individual occasions, or someone signed off for 12 checks at the very end of their
Yeah.
shift?
All the same penning.
Yeah, same penning.
Yeah, it's a really long day.
Yeah, sometimes they're in the future, sometimes in their past. You don't know. But twofold. One is we've created a proactive place for the customer to say this facility needs work, and that could be whether you return your tray at the Wendy's or in the bathroom because it's out of toilet paper. We've also now started hiding buttons in locations, so only the staff know the buttons are there. So the staff, when they do their facility walks, they push the hidden button. So the management group understands that the facility walk happened every hour. And this is the only thing we've said yet that doesn't work, is in the near future, roadmap, on the roadmap, we're going to then go, okay, it's been 55 minutes since someone told me they went to the men's bathroom. It's time to trigger a request. And we're going to then do a push notification saying, go check the bathroom because we want to make sure we're taking care of that. It's a really effective way, especially again in the quick service restaurant, gas stations, convenience stores. Bathrooms matter, right? And there's lots of chains that have great connections
Or
with their
go to
customers.
market.
Yeah, their go to market is like clean bathrooms,
yeah.
and there's a new effect. We have a really effective way at a really competitive price point for, especially when there's ownership would own in those cases lots often multiple facilities, and you don't know you can't be in everyone at all the time. To again just enhance that customer experience, or and this is a crappy reality of checking bathrooms is you can go check the bathroom at 11, and at 11:05 something bad happened in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I think to myself sometimes, my staff didn't go. And I'm like, no, I went, but the next guy in, the next baby in there made a mess.
Yeah.
And now you have to clean it up again. But it's always, trying to walk the fine line of thinking, planning for the worst, hoping for the best, but then also and really
it's
believing.
like a contingency, but I think it's like for that. It's I think also too for us it's like proactive and reactive response, right? Like you proactively check, but then our customers can tell us when we need to react. And I think it's hitting it from both sides.
100%. So this whole journey, you've obviously got background, experience, people you can lean on around entrepreneurship and running a retail store. I heard neuroscience and political science or international business.
Yeah.
I don't think on jump those are building a technology product with IoT. Maybe it's not that, but part of this journey is obviously different and less familiar to your experiences. What's been like the most satisfying or pleasant part of that journey? And what's been like the hardest or most challenging? Because I think there's people listening that maybe have those problems in front of them, but never thought of themselves as startup founders, right? Maybe I own businesses, maybe a lawyer, a dentist. Those are businesses. Running a retail environment's a business, but it's not a startup. It's a different flavor. What's been like, on both sides of that? What's been like the most pleasant part of the experience, and what's been sort of the most challenging or thing that you've had to navigate that's very different?
Go ahead.
Thanks.
Hopefully she takes the easy one.
Yeah, he's always just throwing me the ones, eh? I think for me, what's challenging, I'll start with challenging. There's lots that's been rewarding, but I think challenging is also just there's so much I don't know. I don't have a background in technology. So definitely I think as I've met people, I have to be comfortable being like, I don't know what those words mean. And then also acknowledging that I'm not an expert in some of this, but then being comfortable being like, these are the lanes that I am, maybe not an expert, but years of experience in this. And I think as the more people that we've had so many people be so gracious with time and mentoring us in conversations, there's not many that I've had that they haven't been like, what's special about you is that you understand your business problem better than anyone, or you can rival what everyone is. So it's, lean into that. And then it's okay, I think, to rely on the people that understand what the code is like and where it's sitting. And those questions, I just know I'm not best to answer them, although I'm trying to educate myself on that so I don't, look blank face when someone asks me some of those questions. I think navigating, what you're good at, being comfortable in a room saying, can you back that up? I need to write that down. I want to learn more about that, tonight when I drive home, listen to a podcast about it as I drive to and from work.
Yeah.
So I think that part has been challenging, but I also think that's great room for growth, right? Is like not getting too comfortable. And I think doing this has taken us outside of a lane where we feel really comfortable and into one where we're certainly learning. But people have been so
Generous
and so kind and like welcoming to us that it hasn't felt yet to feel like people are like, you don't belong here. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Cool.
But yeah, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think full disclosure, Mike, we kind of alluded to this, that the beginning of our startup founder journey was pretty unique because we were funding
Wasn't one.
as it's kind of alluded to, we've bootstrapped it to this point.
Yep.
We think we're now in scale mode. We still we haven't taken any funding, but we're starting to learn about the process because we know that if we're going to make this into something, we're going to need money at some point.
Yep.
But
it's
we
cool. I got
were
a podcast just about that decision. So if you haven't heard that one yet, or maybe
Yeah,
you did,
well, I got a pitch for you coming here in a second.
I love it.
So it was pretty unique, right? Is that we knew that where the bills were going to come. We understood burn, but within
Yeah.
the operating company that we were developing this solution for, I think the other part is that, like, we grew up in this our entire lives. We're now kind of the organizational head of the Canadian Tire. Our roles are evolving a little bit, so I'm now pretty much exclusively on app. Elizabeth is exclusively at the store, give or take
Okay.
some real high level stuff because we knew that was the next step. Is one of us had to quit her day job. So I ask her for money when I have to do things. Which hasn't actually changed that much over our lifetime. But why that's relevant is we were lucky that we got it really far before we really had to understand burn because like we were just trying to build something. I think in terms of rewarding then is because we spent our whole life in this space, there weren't that many times in my life, even when I tried to, that I wasn't the person in the room that the managers or the other staff that we were lucky enough to work with weren't looking to us for the solutions, right? Like rarely were we not supposed to either drive conversation or use our experience to shed light where I like to describe myself as like a lifelong learner, a problem chaser was one of the lines that I heard from one of your podcasts. That was like, that resonated with me of like, I have had so much imposter syndrome in the last 6 months of like, I'm not supposed to be here. But every time I come out on the other end of that, it's like, I just learned another life skill and that was friggin' awesome. And, here, my pitch or my plug for you is those 3 Rocket Fuel podcasts that I've listened to, every one of them, like I had that like, shit moment at the end of it of like, there's more to do here, but then it's just so rewarding that there, as Liz said, there's so many people in this space that want to help, and we're just like, we're all swinging and fighting and clawing to try to get a piece, and it's cool because Canadian Tire, while gaining people's trust and money right now, because life is hard for many Canadians, isn't as easy as it used to be, but people are still coming to Canadian Tire. But if we're gonna make this a thing, like we're gonna scrap and claw the same way everybody else does. And it's not just hard work, it's not just access to capital, it's a whole bunch of different magic things that are gonna like meeting meeting you at Collision as like a great example of just like you have all these serendipitous moments of like, yeah, that's your next that was a milestone moment, and then you have another one, and you just got to keep taking those good days. We had a really good day on Tuesday, but like maybe we'll have a really crappy day next Tuesday, and you just like get out of bed and go again, right? And
I think the way I heard one founder put it best was, in a startup, you will have those good days and you will have those bad days, and things will feel overwhelming. But the most important thing you can do is keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Don't stop doing that and make that forward progress. So you alluded to like these elements of funding. I always ask this curious question. It's sort of just like a cool way to understand like what are the priorities or things that people are doing and within their business. But I don't have it. One day maybe I will. But if Pitch please injected an additional $100,000 into Meerby today, what would you invest that in?
I think we debate this.
Yeah,
The chicken and
great,
an egg
yeah, great
thing.
question.
This is one we're talking about often. I think for us, there's two. I think, we're trying to figure out which one you pursue, and then which one happens after. I think many people have said to us, no one's going to sell this like the two of us are going to sell it. Being able to get in front of the right audience to sell the product. I think we need a more robust marketing sales approach, I think. And again, because that isn't our actually developing that plan is not our background. I think hiring on someone that can really lead that sales, lead generation, what that pipeline should look like to actually or help us get in front of the right audiences. I think that's one kind of direction we know we need to invest in. And then the other thing is right now our tech is outsourced to an outside company. I mean, they're a boutique small company, so we work really hand in hand with them. But again, we're not tech people. That's not our background. So I think maybe some in-house better advising or understanding of that is like the other.
Yeah.
But it's like, do we go after the sales and then bring in that tech person, or you bring in that tech person to make it a bit more robust to go after those sales? I think we're kind of,
Yeah. The other
It'll
part,
be
just
interesting to see how it goes.
Stay tuned.
yeah. I think sales and marketing is going to come before technology
Yeah.
because, as Liz said, we have a really good relationship, especially if they're listening with the guys that are doing our code. They're great. I was in their office yesterday. Like, it feels like they're an extension of us, and they all sit in one space, so that's really important.
And if I heard right, you guys are kind of built well beyond MVP. You're almost overbuilt. So at this stage, you can kind of run until you start breaking things.
Yeah.
And really get that volume and scale, build that continued trust. I think, over time, augment at least some thought leadership within your team, but you can get great advisors in the short term. But it does sound like you guys are ready for that moment to continue to sail and scale, which is really cool. As we kind of bring it all together, you shared a lot of good thoughts. I loved getting into the product. There's so many key components here. Any final thoughts or advice, either from building this business or for other people sort of debating if they should start a startup, or something you've learned or been told along the way that, our listeners should listen into?
I think one, not to be too sappy. I think we joked earlier when we were in the pre-chat that 6.5 days out of 7, I like my sister, and most of the time we probably for a really long time in our lives we've also been each other's best friends. So what a cool opportunity to continue to do this. Hopefully she didn't smirk when I said it. I didn't see her reaction. So that's really special. I think the other part in terms of people that are thinking about doing it, there's never going to be a right time in your life, right? So if you've got that great idea, the resources are out there, whether it's local incubators or investment programs that you can go out and get advice and not, don't sell your house and forfeit your life too soon. Just do what you need to do. And it's hard. And if it always feels comfortable, I think two things is if it always feels comfortable, you're probably not doing it right. And two, the sooner you understand what it is you're predisposed to want to do and figure out whether or not, especially when you're really small, figure out what you like to do and then make yourself do the harder, different things. Or once you get to an opportunity to hire to fill the void, that self-reflection and understanding whether capacity, competency, or willingness.
Yeah, where's the gaps?
Wherever that gap is, and just try to surround yourself with the best people. Either the best people that you can afford or the best people to, whatever one it is. Just find your own way, because it's cool. It's been awesome and really terrible at the same time. More good than bad though, I promise.
Yeah.
I love it. Anything on your side, Elizabeth?
I think echoing, my husband teases me all the time, I love being at work. I think it's what's cool for me is, I love my day job. And then I think what's amazing about this is then I get to take all the things I've learned from mentors that I've had, our parents, all those people, and put it into this thing that's going to help the next generation of retailers or operators do it even better and learn some of the lessons, that I learned the hard way or we learned the hard way. It's like kind of making that simpler. And then I think, we talk about being overbuilt, but it's also because there's a never ending amount of idea and like excitement around the next thing we could do. And I laughed at Al. It's like, someone recently was like, well, what's next on your roadmap? And we kind of like both did a quiet pause. And I was like, it's probably because Alan's like, if I say something, Liz is going to jump down my throat that nothing is on the future roadmap. But it's like, if I need that, literally, I could just go down, do my job and talk to my people and come up with that next thing and then go back and make it even better. So I think it's like, obviously everyone wants to do what they love. People talk about that, find what you like love and then find a way to make that your life's work. So I think this really is merging kind of, how we grew up,
both. Yeah.
But then also being able to take our own lived experience and put it into this thing. And I think the idea of having, too soon to say, but the idea of having a legacy of this is something that, we did, I think our parents are so amazing at what they did. Our dad is definitely a legend in his own right, in his space of all the things that he did. So I think the idea, like the first time we saw it set up in another store, we both had a like teary-eyed moment of like, we did this, like this, we did this thing.
Someone sent us money, Mike.
Yeah.
Like they sent us a check
for the things. And I think,
yeah.
So I think just like what a hopefully people out there, it's like that moment, I'll never forget that, and let's hope there's many more moments to come like that. But I think
we probably need 100 more, and then
many more moments like that. But I think merging all of these little aspects and then trying something new. I think Alan's really right. I think making yourself go through those uncomfortable moments is how we all learn or improve or get better, right? So forcing ourselves to do that, you come out the other side better or change. So
it's funny. After I said, it's hard, but you should do it. It's like, but it's also not for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Like
it's not.
I think the part of that is it's there's so many competent, excellent people out there that we've run into that have failed too. It's just like, there's no formula. And
I think the only other thing that I think we talked about, but I think is important is also we didn't set out. I think and I don't think this is wrong, but that's not our route to this, is that we really just wanted to solve our own business problem. It was working. It was robust. We were, happy with what it was doing for our business, and then kind of went, like, if it can do this for us, it can do these other things. So it wasn't like, I'd like to be a tech founder. What could I do? It's like, I don't, I was joking with you guys. Like, I didn't know this was a thing.
Right? Some people are like that serial founder, and some people, the problem slaps them in the face. And they need to solve it.
And so I think there's many ways to come to it. And then I think the other thing that didn't come up that I just want to say is that obviously there's so much talk about, replacing people or technology, or there's like definitely themes in our day job of, using technology that replaces the person. And I think what our tech is about enhancing the staff that we have. It's not about replacement. And I just think it's like, we understand that our customers still really do want to talk to a person, and they value coming in and having an interaction. So we just want to make that a lasting, impressive engagement, not removing that engagement. So I think that's the only other thing that is important to us that this technology can achieve, is enhance, not replace.
Yeah, it's not an AI chat bot at the bank counter that's going to answer all your questions. It might be an employee with a device that has some of that intelligence worked into their hand, like with them in their hand, but it's not removing from that one-to-one. Because if you wanted to do that, you might have bought your paint from Amazon anyway.
You're really extending the retail experience and doubling down on bringing people together, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Which, in light of the post-COVID thing, seems like more important than ever, right? It's just like there's people that come here now because they just want to. They generally want to also buy something, but like they want that face-to-face thing because they're a whole bunch of time they couldn't.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Well, this has been a jam-packed episode. Lots of great background stuff around founders, stuff around entrepreneurship, your product. Allan, Elizabeth, thank you for coming on the podcast today. To anyone that tuned in, I think you're going to hopefully have loved this episode and continue to check out more. So, that's a shout out, like, subscribe, follow, share, whatever you need to do to keep supporting both founders and then obviously the Rocket Fuel episodes, which are to help empower your journey as a founder, a builder, or someone working at a startup. Allan, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining the Pitch Please podcast today, and hope to continue watching Meerby succeed and grow in the near future.
Thanks.